15 minutes past midnight. D-Day was about to begin. The British gliders were heading for a field between the two bridges of the Orne River. They had made it this far undetected, but now they had to land exactly on target.
Pete said, "There's the bridge." I had a quick glance out of the window and then sure enough.
Heading straight for it.
As you approach the ground, you would then begin to ease back, ease back, ease back. And so she came down and then flared out. You touched down on the main wheels. And I remember tearing along, I'd got the brakes on, and then all of a sudden, everything in front of me disintegrated virtually. I remember this God Almighty crash and water and everything, and I sort of realised I was underwater, and I thought there's not much future in that, and struggled out.
They had landed in a pond about 200 feet from their target bridge. The troops swept out, leaving Jeff behind, badly concussed. Staggering out from the wreckage into the dark, he ran straight into his own men.
They challenged me with the password, and I, in my dizzy state, didn't answer quick enough. He fired in my general direction, and I got hit in the wrist. It was a stinging sensation. I remember that. It was like something, I'd been bitten by a giant wasp or something.
Jeff had been hit by friendly fire, but crucially, they had taken the bridge in just 15 minutes. Only 2 British soldiers had been killed, the first Allied casualties of D-Day, the first of thousands. The glider mission had gone like clockwork. Now it was the paratroopers' turn. 30 miles to the west, over 800 droning C-47s were crossing into France. German anti-aircraft guns opened fire.
You're mesmerized by all the fire coming up, the tracers coming up. When the enemy's moving the gun this way and then back, searching for you at night, the bullets, it's hard to explain, but all the bullets follow in a pattern, and it looks like a living snake.
The paratroopers' mission was clear. Rally at the drop zones, then keep the Germans from reinforcing their lines by taking the town of Sainte-Mère-Église and 4 vital causeways behind Utah Beach.
There was so much flak hitting, and all the troopers, they set up like a chant. They said, "Let's get out, let's get out, let's get out of this damn thing." So when we finally got the green light, it was like a gigantic spring. Everybody went. So the first thing you do is check your canopy all the time. So that's what I did. The first thought, check the canopy. All the tracers coming. I saw the tracers actually going through it. And I knew the machine gunner was trying to shoot me, but elevating his gun, he was shooting over me and he's hitting the canopy.
The airborne assault was a mess. Half the paratroopers were scattered hopelessly off course as their pilots tried to evade the fog and heavy flak. Some landed on the town of Sainte-Mère-Église, only to be riddled with bullets as they fell onto the rooftops. And Rommel had laid yet another trap. He had flooded the fields. Paratroopers drowned in up to 5 feet of water. Three miles offshore, the American commanders ordered the launch of 29 floating DD tanks. But in the rough seas and strong currents off Omaha Beach, this was too far for the tanks to swim to shore.
We said, they must be balmy, they must be mad. We both said it simultaneously. We're crazy. And much has been made of this, and much has been talked about it, because they drowned 26 tanks, one after the other.
In total, 27 tanks heading into the eastern half of Omaha were lost. The foolhardy order to launch them in rough seas too far from the shore meant the infantry were now going in with little chance of knocking out the German gun batteries.
It was crazy, it was criminal, and whoever decided to do it was a coward, in my opinion, because it was absolutely mad. They didn't want to take them right in onto the beach.
15 miles to the east, the tank crews heading towards Sword Beach in the British sector had no idea so many DD tanks had gone down. If they followed their American counterparts at Omaha and launched as far from the coast, they would be heading for the same fate.
It was the roughest sea we'd ever seen. We'd never launched in a sea like that, and we were amazed when we got the order to launch. They stopped the tank landing craft, lowered the ramp, and the first tank went in.
Luckily for the tank crews in the British sector, their commanders had decided to push their luck and take the tanks much closer in to the shore.
We just kept going straight. We never moved an inch, and she bounced a few times. We got some water over, and Charlie kept looking at me, and I thought, no.
What we decided, we'd stay on top of the tank, because we'd rather get shot than be trapped at the bottom of the channel in a tank. So only poor old Ozzy couldn't. Poor old Ozzy was down in driving, of course. And then the naval bombardment started up. We had a grand sound view of this. We hear these shells hurtling over the top of us, and see all the explosions on the shore, and all the houses along the coast were all burning furiously.
Guns firing from them warships that were whistling overhead, and we kept looking at each other, me and Charlie, because we kept thinking, well, if one dropped short, because when you see the craters they made when you landed, you thought, how the hell you couldn't have got a tank in them actually and out the other side. It was, there's 16-inch guns,
Omaha Beach was a disaster waiting to happen, with only a handful of tanks to battle 85 German machine gun positions. For the 70,000 troops heading into the American beaches, there was no going back.
At this point, we are maybe 500 to 1,000 yards off the beach. We're going in. I've got 4 or 5 boats over here, 4 or 5 boats over here. I can see bullets hitting the water, and they cascade the water like maybe 8 to 10, 12 feet up in the air. And your first reaction is, let's stop and let them run out of ammunition or change your position. You can't do it. I'm compelled to go. I can't, if I stop, I cause a major gridlock all the way back to sea.
As we got closer and the machine gun bullets started hitting the boat, it was just natural that the people went down, and they stayed down in the boat. I turned around and I looked at all the men to make sure that they were down and in their positions so that we could come off fast.
The ramp went down, slam dunk. These 36 troops would be standing about like so, poised in an assault position.
We came off in the run, and the man to my left was hit immediately. I could see him going down, and I avoided him a little bit so that I didn't step on him.
And by the time the last soldier is about in this position stepping down, I'm already backing the boat off and head back to the ship 12 miles offshore and stand by to pick up another load of whatever.
There were dead people everywhere. They're floating in the water. The tides are turning them over. They're lying sideways like logs, rolling with the tide.
Inland, the American paratroopers were still scattered through enemy country. As they fought their way towards the vital routes leading off the beaches, their chaotic advance was having a surprising effect. It was confusing the Germans.
And I saw a German, so I just, without all the things that I had, was coming up very slowly up on Hundley, which started, working on me, that I was going to have to kill him. And this man just popped out, and I raised up and fired, and he went down. Well, after the first one, it wasn't too bad, because another one came out from behind her, and he stopped right where this other one fell. So I took a careful bead on him, took the slack out of the trigger, and touched it off, and he went down. And you almost think like when you might have the same reaction when you kill your first deer. You say, I got one. That's about all there was to it. And then when I shot the second, I got two. And so you go from there.
On Juno Beach, in the British sector, Hobart's funnies were ready to get to work. 3 flail tanks, the mechanical minesweepers, were heading for a ramp that led up to a minefield at the back of the beach. But blocking their way was a solid steel barricade.
Up at the top of the ramp, there are a couple of steel gates called Element C, represented by those CD cases there. So I have to aim the gun through the barrel at each joint. When you're looking through a 75mm hole, it looks extraordinarily large when there's likelihood of stuff coming the other way. So we load, fire, and so on at all the different joints. Having reduced it to a lot of tangled metal, I climbed out of the turret, picked up the cable and attach it to the debris up here that we'd wrecked, and then reverse the tank, dragging it out into the sea out of the way. And then that left the way clear for the other 2 tanks to come up and start flailing up here.
On Omaha Beach, Harley Reynolds had not even fired a round. There was no point. The Germans were not in range of his rifle. However, American infantry were being gunned down by the 100.
I know that several bullets hit the steel tetrahedral that I was trying to hide behind, because they made a splat when they hit the steel. And one bullet came through, and I'm hunkered down here, and that bullet came through here, and it came between the legs and hit the ground, and that's when I said, it's time to get out of here, I'm making my dash through here, and I'm down in a stance and moving as fast as I can so that I keep low so I don't get hit, and I'm looking ahead all the time. I spot this shingle up here and all these men, and I'm running through here, and I go right on through until I get to the shingles. And then when I go down, I remember that bullets are flying around you like crazy. And when I get to the shingles, and I get up here and I go down, you're falling halfway on top of someone, and you have to do this to get deep into the rock that formed the shingles. At arm's length, bullets were actually hitting, and those rock exploding at that time, they ping against the helmet. And you're just lying here listening to all those bullets whizzing and zipping over your head, zipping by you. And they're so close over your head. As they go over, you know that you feel them as well as hear them. I had made up my mind that I was going to go through the wire, and then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, this small man came up, and he was this close to, I could touch him. And he made his way between these men here, and he had a section of Bangalore in front of him.
The Bangalore torpedo was a piece of kit that predated the First World War, but it was tried and tested.
Fed one section of the torpedo in front of him, got the other section screwed in together, and then pushed the whole thing. That made it about 10 feet long, so that when it went off, it would blow a pathway through there you could drive a truck through. Immediately that explosion went off, I got my gun in my hand, and I'm up. I don't move that fast these days, but I'm up, and I make a dash. And I make a dash through this wire, and my men are right with me. And my men are right with me. That leg didn't work too well.
In losing all 5 beaches to the Allies, the Germans suffered around 6,500 casualties.
Being the first man through that little hole in that barbed wire down there, just one person, and compare it to how many people there have been on this earth, the billions and billions. This is where my ego comes to play. But I'm the only man living that's ever lived or that ever will live to be the first one to come through that wire. Is that bragging? Is that boasting?
In the British sector, with so many less casualties, it was clear the new technology had saved countless lives. By the end of the day, the minefields and beach obstacles had been almost completely cleared by Hobart's funnies. And the floating tanks had helped to usher the troops through Rommel's treacherous beaches.
We all gathered round the squadron leader's tank. The radio operator tuned into the BBC home service. This was just before 6 o'clock. And then we heard the 6 o'clock news, and it said, early this morning, Allied forces landed on the coast of France. So, oh, that's rather strange. We hadn't heard about that. But of course, it was rather strange to think they were talking about us, and we were sitting there listening to it on the radio.
As the paratroopers at last moved up to reinforce the infantry on the American beaches, the body count began. Of the 10,000 Allied casualties on D-Day, 2,000 had fallen on one stretch of land, 3.5 miles long. Omaha Beach.